Books, books. I like books. I'm gonna read them all. Hi readers, I'm Chris. Welcome to February and another exciting month of reading. It's the first weekend of the month and things are already not going exactly how I planned. I'm actually at a different location doing laundry right now, and I did bring my handy dandy ring light with me. Unfortunately, I didn't have a place to plug it in. I forgot my plug, so sorry about the lighting. But I'm going to jump in and start talking about what's going to be going on for February. I already talked about my February TBR in a previous video. Some other fun things I have going on this month is that I am beta reading a book for a booktube author, which I am so excited to talk more about this month. And I'm getting ready to take a trip to Costa Rica in the beginning of March. So all month long, I'm going to be prepping for that trip, which I do get travel anxiety, so I'm probably going to be freaking out. And I also have a ton of books I want to finish before I go. So I'm going to dive in, talk about what I'm reading this month and some of my early thoughts. So the first book that I want to talk about is I Bleed Starseeds by Namina. Now, this is a super short book of horror poetry, and even though she says that this is a book of poetic debaucheries, like there have been some poems in here that have actually hit me in ways that I did not expect. One of the poems that I wanted to mention here in this video is this poem called Never Ending Bad Hangover. And this poem is about it's about a high school love, like your first love. And I think when I do a review, I might just actually read it out loud if that's okay with Nim. But this poem really hit me in a way that I didn't expect. And it really brought me back to high school. And it made me think back on my first love and what it felt like to be in love at that age, and what that kind of love really feels like and looks like. And it just hit me in such a way that, I don't know, I can't explain it. Maybe when I read it, you'll actually understand what I'm talking about. But otherwise, all I want to say is I Bleed Starseeds is probably, I don't know, one of my favorite collections of poetry that I've read recently, which, to be fair, I don't read a ton of poetry, so, but I don't want that to take away from the fact that I think Namina is super talented. I've also been continuing to read Rose Matter by Stephen King. I actually started this book in January, and then I kind of had to take a break from reading it for a while. If you saw my previous vlog or my, monthly wrap-up, you'll know why. But I am back into it again. I don't have that much left of the book, so I'm definitely going to finish it because I don't DNF. And it's not that this book is bad. The book is not bad in any sense of the word. It's just a hard read because it's not a fun book. It is about a woman who has been mentally, emotionally, and physically abused by her husband for years. And Stephen King really goes into the nitty gritty details of what it would, not only what it feels like from her perspective, but he actually goes into the husband's perspective, and we get a little bit inside his head and what he's thinking and what he's doing as he's doing these horrible things to his wife. And I feel like this type of story is almost more horrific than The Shining, than any monster ghost story, because these are things that people really do to each other. And just thinking about that, it makes me really sad, honestly. So this is not a fun read. It's really difficult. Obviously, it's written incredibly well, but it's a very hard read. And definitely, if anyone hasn't read this and you want to, it's definitely a trigger warning. Depending on how this book ends, I think will really impact how I feel about the book. So later on in the month, when we get to that part, I will definitely let you know how I'm feeling. I've also started reading The Winter of the Witch by Katherine Arden. This is the third and final book in the Winter Night trilogy, and this series has been such a delight, such a delight. It's probably one of the best, adult fantasy series that I've read recently. I am becoming a big fan of Brandon Sanderson. I've read a couple other good, adult fantasies, but this just reads like a fairy tale. It's so magical, it's so whimsical, but yet very adult and mature at the same time, if that makes any sense. The first two books, The Bear and the Nightingale and The Girl in the Tower, were both wonderful. I expect this book to be just as good. I'm only 10 chapters in, and so far it is very promising. I don't have any concerns about it. I'm just really looking forward to continuing the adventure, and I feel like this is one of those series that I'm gonna be really sad when it ends. That's how I feel right now. Well, we'll see how it goes. Again, this is something that I mentioned in my monthly wrap up, but I decided to pick a kind of random book to read this month, Earthly Joys by Philippa Gregory. Philippa Gregory is one of my all-time favorite authors. By the time that I really started this channel in 2020, I had pretty much read almost everything that Philippa Gregory had ever written. She's written a ton of books about Tudor era England, about, Henry VIII, his wives. She's written a ton of stuff, but I have already read most things that she's written. There was only a select few books of hers that I hadn't read, and this was one of them. So even though I kind of took a break from reading Philippa Gregory because I discovered all these new authors and all these new genres by joining BookTube and Bookstagram, but February, it's supposed to be a month about love, and I like to say, self-love, and at the end of the day, I love Philippa Gregory, so I decided it was time to get back to what I love. So even though this is an old book and not a popular book of hers, I'm probably not going to get many views when I read and review this book, but that's okay. Hopefully Earthly Joys will bring me joy. So far, it's had a pretty slow start and nothing exciting has happened. I feel like this book is going to be a slow burn, but hopefully the slow burn will be worth it. Next up, I have Chain of Thorns by Cassandra Clare. Yes, I decided to take the dust jacket off of this book because I didn't want to ruin it. The dust jacket is so beautiful. It's so beautiful. And look how big this book is. It's so chunky. It's almost 800 pages, which worries me because, again, there's only 28 days in February. I have a lot to read, and this is a chunky book. But because I'm doing this book as a buddy read with Kelly over at Kelly Reads a Lot, I think she's going to keep me on track and keep me motivated to actually get through this one. So if you're not familiar with Cassandra Clare and the Shadowhunter world, I mean, it's kind of hard to talk about at this point because this book is I don't know, the 30th in her world. She's written a lot of books. But this is the third book in a specific trilogy. I have reviewed the first two books previously, and I have reviewed some of her other books, in my YouTube history here. So if anyone's interested, I can definitely either share a link or maybe I'll create just a playlist for Cassandra Clare books. I don't know. So let me know if you are a big Cassandra Clare fan, because then I can put something together for you to make it easier to find those videos. Next up, I'm continuing the Raven cycle with Blue Lily, Lily Blue. I typically try to read one middle grade fantasy a month, and this is kind of taking the place of that. I believe that the Raven cycle is technically considered YA, but it's kind of on the line. It's kind of on the line between middle grade and YA. It's younger YA, older middle grade. But suffice to say, I have been loving this series so far. This is the third, but not the final, because there's 4 books, I think, in this series altogether. But each of the books in this series is kind of focusing on one character, because there's like a whole group of friends. There's 4 boys and the 1 girl. And I feel like book 1 focused on this boy, Gainsey. Book 2 focused on another boy, Ronan. I'm assuming by the title that this book is going to focus on our 1 girl character, Blue. I shouldn't say 1 girl. There's multiple female characters. But from the main group of friends, it's the 1 girl and the 4 boys. So I'm assuming this focuses on Blue, and it seems like that's the case so far, which I am actually really excited for. Even though Blue is like the main character throughout the series, we haven't spent a ton of time like really exploring her family and her family's history. So that's what I'm expecting going into this. And sometimes when you have certain expectations, you can be disappointed, but Maggie Stiefvater has not disappointed me yet. And the little bit that I've read so far, I think I'm right. I think my expectations are going to be met. I'll check in later this month and let you know how that's going. And finally, the last book that I am currently reading is The Gilded Ones by Namina, Forna. This book came in an Owl Crate book box. It does not have a reversible dust jacket, but it does have a pretty stamp on the hardcover on the inside. I really didn't know anything about this book going into it. I pretty much went in blind. I didn't even read the inside flap. Like, I feel like some of these books, it's just better to go in blind and not know anything. That way I can be surprised. But so far, it's about a young girl who is found to have impure blood, and she's taken from her village and sent to join this like elite group of female warriors. That's pretty much all that's happened so far. But I will say that this book wasted no time in like setting up the world, setting up the rules, and then getting our main character from her village into this army. Like I said, I'm only a few chapters in, and all of this stuff has happened already. So I like that it doesn't have this like long drawn out buildup. I like that it gets into it right away. So far I'm really enjoying this one, and I'm hoping that it keeps up that fast pace all the way through. That's all I wanted to say for this first check-in. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of check-ins this month as my reading progresses and I get ready for my trip. So hopefully you will stick around, and I will talk to you later.
Please enjoy this sleeping Jack. And if you look really close, you can see his little paws twitching in his sleep. He's having a very nice nap with his daddy. Clearly he is living the life, so to say.
So it's the second weekend of February, and because it's not quite halfway through the month, I haven't really gotten halfway through many of my books. So I don't have a huge update today, but I do have one thing I wanted to share, and that is I finally finished Rose Madder by Stephen King. Now, as I've been talking about, I had a hard time with this one, and it's not because it's a bad book, it's just because it's hard to read. It's basically the story about a woman who was physically abused by her husband for like years and years and years, and just reading about it's just not pleasant. And also, we actually spend a lot of time inside the head of her husband. So he, like, the way that he stalks her and thinks and talks about the things he's going to do to her when he finds her are just super unpleasant to read about. So I had a hard time with that. And then we got to the end of this book, and the end of this book, I don't know how I feel about, because this is a story that is grounded in reality. So there is nothing magical or supernatural about this story, until the end. And all of a sudden, at the end, it takes this like very supernatural turn, which kind of threw me off because I really, I really don't like that when stories are very much, they feel like are happening in the real world, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh, but they're not. There's something magical going on over here. It's like, it should have been that way from the start, or why have this super weird magical ending? I don't know. So, yeah, I definitely struggled with this one, and I'm gonna have to think about it some more, digest it before I can do like a real review, because I don't know. I don't know. I just don't know. So I don't know what else I can say about it right now other than, I've read a lot of Stephen King books by this point, and this definitely wasn't one of my most favorite. I don't think it's horrible by any means, but definitely not a favorite. So now I am currently in a debate on whether or not I should start the next Stephen King book on my list. In case you didn't know, I'm reading all his books by publication date, and the next one up is The Green Mile, which I have never read before, but I have seen the movie. I'm a huge fan of that movie, so I've been really looking forward to getting to this book. However, there's no chance, there's no chance I can possibly finish that book this month if I start it now. I do have a trip coming up in the first week of March. I'm going to Costa Rica. I can't finish that book before then, so I think I might actually take it with me on my trip. I'm going to take with me that book, and then probably one of my smutty smut books. I love to take a good mindless smut book on vacation with me, so I think that's what I'm going to do. The other book I wanted to talk about real quick is Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber. I'm making pretty decent progress in this one. I actually am almost halfway through this one because I feel like this book has very like big text. So even though it's a lot of pages, like the pages are very easy and very quick to read. This book is definitely very interesting so far. I do wish that I had read the Caraval series and then like immediately read this one after. But it's been at least a year and a half since I read Caraval. So some of the references in here I know are from that series. I just don't quite 100% remember them all. So I would definitely say if you want to read Once Upon a Broken Heart, like either go back and read, I think, what was it called? Finale? Finale is like the final book in the Caraval series, or just read the whole series and then jump into this one. I feel like, unless you have like a really good memory. And I generally do. I can't remember every single little detail that is mentioned in here. And I know there's a lot of references and Easter eggs in here. So far, I don't really have a strong opinion of this book. I feel like I like the characters for the most part. It's got a interesting plot. I will say that it feels completely different from the Caraval series in terms of like the plot and what's happening so far anyway. And I have no idea where the story is going, like no idea. The inside flap that talks about what this book is about really only covers like the first couple of chapters, so I have no idea what's gonna happen. And on one hand, I really like that because I like to be surprised. On the other hand, some of the things that have happened so far, I've just kind of been like meh about, like okay. So we'll see. Hopefully, once I get to the end, I'll have a more stronger opinion on how I really feel about this one. So that's all for the reading update for today, but I did also want to talk a little bit about the beta read that I'm doing right now. So I think I mentioned this in my last vlog that I had started doing a beta read, which, just for anyone who doesn't know, a beta reader is someone who reads a book like before it's published. So an author, once they do their first draft, might go out to a beta reader for any number of things. And usually when you agree to be a beta reader, the author will usually let you know, like, specifically what type of feedback they're looking for. So I've had a couple authors like say, hey, I want you to read, the prologue and the epilogue and tell me what you think about those. Sometimes they might give you a questionnaire to fill out, like, hey, tell me which characters you liked most or which you didn't like most, things like that. And then this one that I'm doing right now, the author basically told me, just go nuts, go wild, and give me any and all feedback, which is super fun. So for me personally, the way that I try to approach it is kind of twofold. On one hand, I try to basically read it like I would read a normal book. And instead of like, if you read a book and you annotate things, this I'm more like just leaving notes like, oh, what does this mean? What does this mean? I don't understand this. It's confusing, etc., etc., etc. The other thing that I am a strong believer in is that even though the author is looking for feedback, and obviously you want, if something is confusing or quote unquote wrong, you want to let them know, but I also think it's really important to point out the good things and the things that are working. So for example, and the one that I'm doing right now, even in the very, the first 100 pages that I've read, like I've already have like a favorite character picked out, and I make a point to be like, I'm really liking this character, I'm really connecting with them, and this is why. And maybe there's someone else that I'm not connecting with as much. Because if the author knows the things that are working, like that might help them tweak some other things that you're not even thinking about. And this can be applied to not just characters, but the plot, the world building, even certain scenes maybe. I just read like a really exciting action scene that I thought was really cool. There was just a bit of information we found out about one of the characters that I thought was really cool. So if you're gonna provide feedback, it shouldn't all be bad, is the point I'm trying to make here in my rambling. It should be good too, unless like you feel the story is complete and total crap, which I don't think that would be the case. There's always something good that you can find, and you should definitely point that out. If you've ever known anyone that's done any sort of writing, like it usually takes people a while and they put a lot of thought and effort into it. So like you should be very thoughtful about your feedback, either say why you feel a certain way, and like I said, positive reinforcement whenever possible. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of insight into the beta reading process. If I think of anything else that I think is interesting or might be educational to share, maybe I'll do that in another check-in. I feel like I do have a lot to read still before the end of the month, and I'm falling a little bit behind, so I'm a little bit nervous about that, but I'm gonna push through because I said that I would finish this by the end of February, and I'm really trying to meet that goal. So that's all for this update, and I'll talk to you soon.
Lola, why do you have such crazy eyes? Why do you have such crazy eyes? Boop. You show everyone how nice you are? Aw, thank you. Thank you for the kisses. Thank you so much. Yeah, you're so sweet.
Okay, so I totally meant to do another update the third weekend of February, but I was so busy, I just couldn't get to it. So now it's a Thursday, the 23rd, I think. When I figure it out, I'll put it on the screen. But I figured now would be a good time to do an update, tell you how I'm getting along and all the books that I'm reading. I don't have them all physically with me at the moment, so I'll put up a picture if I need to. And I'm going to start with Once Upon a Broken Heart, because that book has just been a real interesting experience. Having gotten more than halfway through the book now, it's taken some really weird turns, like turns that I was not expecting. Like if you've read Carval, you're familiar with that world, and I was expecting the same type of world that I went into. If you haven't read Caraval, I would say the world of Caraval is very whimsical, it's magical, and it's very unique. It's very unique. But there are some things in Once Upon a Broken Heart that are not unique at all. Like, it almost feels like it's taking a completely different genre and then like mashing it together. That's the best way I can explain it right now. I'm gonna go into it in depth once I finish it and do a review. So all that to say is I'm starting to not like the book as much. Like, I'm starting to not like it as much. It's really thrown me off a little bit, and I reserve judgment till the end. You know, maybe the end will be super surprising and I'll end up loving it and changing my mind. But for right now, this book is not what I was expecting. It's gone in some really weird directions, and directions that I don't think I like. But a book that I do like and I have really been enjoying is Winter of the Witch. Winter of the Witch is a delight, just like all the other books in this series have been. Like, I don't even know what to say about it other than just the characters are amazing, the setting is amazing, and it's really funny because halfway through this book, I actually thought it was a good place to end, like to end the series. But the story kept going, and I had like completely forgotten that there was like a whole separate subplot in the previous book that hadn't been resolved yet. Like, that's how much I was like invested in like the A storyline that I completely forgot about the fact that there's a B storyline. So now the book has kind of wrapped up the A storyline and is now addressing the B storyline. So I'm like, oh, okay, that's where we're going to spend the rest of the time in this book. And I am very interested to see what happens here, because the A storyline is very much set in like magic, and the B storyline is very much set in like the quote-unquote real world. So seeing the way that these two things kind of mesh together, I think has been done beautifully and wonderfully, and I can't wait to see how this book ends. Like, this is definitely turning into probably one of my favorite like adult series of all time. So that was a quick update. This next one will be pretty quick too, and that is Chain of Thorns, another book that I am super enjoying. I have read all of Cassandra Clare's books, so I'm just super invested in this world. I love all the characters. I love the world building, and it's very much like it's very YA, but I still really love it. And this book has some great things going on in it. It's got great drama between the characters. It's got characters that are dealing with like real life situations. So for example, one of the characters in this book is dealing with a very serious alcohol problem, which is not something that's ever been done in any of her books to date. So I think that's really fascinating, and I really think that the story is doing that justice. And it really breaks my heart because I absolutely love this character, and seeing them struggle with this problem that real people struggle with in their real lives it's just heartbreaking. Like, I've had people in my life that have struggled with it, so I know firsthand like what that looks like, and I think the book is doing it accurately. And the fact that this is such a young character that's dealing with it at such a young age, it's just really heartbreaking. I really hope that the book ends well for this character, because they're definitely one of my favorites. I have multiple favorites in this book, and this character that I'm talking about is just one of many. I really hope that happens. The only one thing that is annoying me about this book is that we have some characters who have some conflict that really could be resolved with like a conversation. And I know that that is a common like plot device that a lot of authors use. It's like you, the reader, know something that one of the characters doesn't, and you're just reading it and you're like screaming like, just talk to each other and tell each other the truth, and then this whole thing would be resolved. So that's the only part. I feel like this has dragged on way too long, And the point that I'm at now, which is a little past halfway, it has been resolved now. However, I do feel like it took way too long to get there. So that's my only like small complaint, but again, that is a common plot device, so I understand why it's in there. I guess maybe the author wants me yelling at the book. It did elicit a strong emotion from me, so I guess you could say that is one sign of good writing. It just was really frustrating to read at times. And another book that's been a little frustrating to read is Earthly Joys, the Philippa Gregory book that I'm reading. This book is interesting on a couple different levels, and I don't even remember what I said about this book before, so I may be repeating myself here, but the book is basically about a guy. This takes place in like old 1700s England. He's a gardener and he works for all these different lords, and this one lord he works for is very charismatic, and he kind of has a romantic relationship with him, but he has a wife at home. It's interesting. It's an interesting story, but it is a super slow burn, like incredibly slow. So slow that it's kind of hard to read at times. And this book is over 500 pages. It is not a short book. It is a long book. And it takes so long to get to the relationship between the two men. It was a little bit hard, because when I first saw that there was going to be a romantic relationship in this book, a lot of Philippa Gregory's other books, the way that she's handled those type of relationships has been quite steamy at times. Not like over the top, this isn't like a Bridgerton thing, but there's been some steam in her books. So I was kind of expecting that reading this one, and I did not get that. There's like one scene. There is one scene, and that is it. And that scene does not happen until like, I don't know, 50 to 75% through the book. So it took so long to get to that point, and then it's like blink and you miss it, and then it's over. And I guess that's my fault for expecting more steam in this book. I thought that's what I was gonna get. I thought I was gonna get a gay romance, and that's really not what it is. Yes, on one hand you could say that it is, but then on the other hand it's not. Again, I'm going to have to think about this more and how I want to review it and talk about it, because it's not a bad book by any means. Like, it's a very interesting, I would almost call it like a character study. Like, it's a really deep character study about this one man and his life and his experiences. And I think some people would really, really love that. It was just a little slow for me. No, I shouldn't say a little. It was a lot slow for me. I'm still enjoying it overall, like I'm still reading it, but I have lowered my expectations now in the back half of the book, knowing that I don't think I'm really going to get anything more exciting. It's just a character study, and that's what it is. And again, it's not a bad thing. It's just not what I was expecting. Something that I was expecting, a book I do actually have with me, is Blue Lily, Lily Blue. I keep calling this book Blue Lily, but it's Blue Lily, Lily Blue. Say that 5 times fast. I'm not going to try because I'll mess it up. Third book in the Raven Cycle series, and just like the first 2 that came before it, I'm really enjoying this book. Again, all the characters are here. They've all got great stories. They've all got great arcs. And my favorite villain from the previous book, the Gray Man, he's back here too. He's got like a little fun side plot. And there's even a couple new characters in here that at first, there's one in particular that I was like, I don't know why this character is here. But having gotten almost to the end now, I'm literally almost done with this one, I'm like, I kind of like that character. They're kind of random and don't serve a purpose, but yet at the same time, I really have enjoyed them, so it's kind of funny. But I feel like this book, more than the other 2, has finally answered a lot of the questions that were set up in the first book. So, for example, there was this whole question around who Blue's father was because he's not in her life. She was only told very limited information about him by her mother. And we finally get to learn like a little more about him in this book. That's just one thing. There's a ton of other things we get to learn more and more of. And again, this is another solid, really good book by Maggie Stiefvater. I doubt that my opinion's going to change much in the last like 20, 30 pages here. But yeah, this book is definitely in the running for best of this month, along with probably Chain of Thorns and Winter of the Witch. And that brings me to the last book that I've been reading, The Gilded Ones by Namina Forna. And this book has been another interesting read. I'm quite enjoying it. So far, it's got a pretty simple story. So, young girl, some girls have red blood, some girls have gold blood. Gold-blooded girls are impure and they have to be killed, but she's saved to go fight for the Emperor's army because they're making an army of these gold-blooded girls. And of course, our main character, not only is she a gold-blooded girl, but she is extra special. Yes, that's right. Oh my God, I'm just a regular girl. I didn't know I was special, but actually I'm the most special. A lot of the times that trope really annoys me. It hasn't annoyed me here, at least not yet. I mean, maybe slightly if I'm being honest, but definitely not as much as it has annoyed me in other books that have this similar trope. And I think it's because the main character in this book is really endearing. She's really endearing. She goes through something pretty traumatic like early on in the book, which I think maybe helps make her a little bit more endearing, because here's the thing about these girls with the gold blood is that they cannot be killed until they have their quote-unquote final death. So basically they are put through a lot. If someone's trying to find their final death, they have to kill them in a bunch of creative ways until they can figure out what their final death is. And they go through the experience of dying, which is horrible. I don't know why I'm laughing when I say that, but anyway, long story short here, it's a pretty simple premise. You know, she's been training in this army. She's in the army. The army has gone out on some raids and some missions, and that's really about it. Just at the back quarter here, they're just starting to explore a subplot where maybe there might be some sort of rebellion going on, but it hasn't really gone that deep into it yet. So for 75% of this book, it's been a pretty simple, straight line story. And I'm not opposed to a simple story. I enjoy a simple story once in a while. I don't know. Again, I feel like this is one of those books where I feel like something is missing. But again, maybe it might have a really exciting ending that sets up for future books. I don't know. We'll have to see. So this one, I'm kind of in a wait and see mode right now. Other than the books, I am still doing my beta read that I mentioned in my last check-in, and I've only got, 8-9 days now until I leave for Costa Rica, and I still have over 100 pages of the beta read to go through. And because I'm reading that much more carefully than I would normally speed read through a book, I'm a little worried that I'm not going to finish in time. However, I do have a specific plan of how many pages I want to do a day or in a chunk of days so that I can finish it by the time I leave next week. So keep your fingers crossed. I mean, I have to do it. I did commit to doing it to the author that I'm working with. So I have to make time to do that. But yes, piece of advice, if you are ever beta reading, if you set a date that you need to have it done by, make sure you make that date, because even though it's just it might be a friendly thing, or I'm not getting paid or anything like that. For me personally, if I make a commitment, I want to stick to it. So that is what I'm going to try and do. Keep your fingers and your toes crossed that I can make that deadline. That's it for today's update. I think I'll do one more update at the end of the month when I'm finished with these books, and maybe I'll do like a final update or I'm packing for my trip. I don't know, maybe that's corny. We'll see. So bye for now and see you soon.
Roscoe, are you playing with Mama's booty band? Are you playing with Mama's booty band, her exercise band? No, don't take Mama's exercise band. Not my booty band. Not my booty band. Are you being goofy? Are you being goofy? Wah! Oh no!
It's now February 28th, and as you can see from the snow outside, I am definitely ready to go on my vacation. It's the end of the month, my last check-in, so I can't wait to talk about all the books that I finished. However, there's one book that I didn't finish. That's right, I couldn't finish one book, but let me talk about the ones first that I did finish, starting with Once Upon a Broken Heart. As I mentioned in one of my previous check-ins, this book ended up being really weird, and it continued being weird through the end, and oh gosh, I don't even know what I want to say here, because I do want to do a full review on it, so I will just say now, if you're watching still at this point in the video, it's sneak peek to my review on this one, but I didn't really like it. I didn't really like it. I know a lot of people that love this book. I know a lot of people that love the Caraval series. I love the first Caraval. I had some issues with the others, and I had issues with this one. I had issues with the characters. I had issues with the plot. I had issues with the world building. It just wasn't a well-rounded book for me, and like I mentioned, it's just weird. It's so weird and so random. The things that happen make absolutely no sense whatsoever, and the ending of this book is incredibly annoying, so more to come on that one soon. It is unfortunate because I got this special edition from Barnes & Noble because it's so pretty. It's so pretty. It's such a pretty book. I have the sequel. Maybe I'll like the sequel better. I don't know. I just found myself going, what is going on? I asked that question multiple times when I was reading this book, but more to come on it in a full review. Next up, I was able to finish The Winter of the Witch, and I'm calling it now. I haven't decided, but I'm pretty sure that this book will be my favorite for February. It'll be my favorite. And I can see it ending up in my top 10 for the year, because I cannot remember the last time a book made me as emotional as this book made me feel at the end. I didn't cry, like not straight, like I didn't cry tears, but there were some things happen. There were some things that happened that I just felt in the depths of my soul, and they made me emotional. Like I could feel the tears coming, even if they didn't fall. I could feel them there. Like I could feel my eyes getting watery. I could feel my heart either like constricting or pounding. Like I just felt it in my soul. I'm not going to say why, because again, I want to do a full review, but this series has just been phenomenal, and it ended on a phenomenal note. So I think this book has cemented that this trilogy, the Winter Night trilogy, definitely deserves a spot on like my all-time favorite adult fantasy series. It does, because it's just that good. It is just that good. And I will tell you way more about it when I do a full review. I'm going to be so excited to talk more about this one, because if you have not read it yet, hopefully I can convince you to give it a try. The next book that I finished is Earthly Joys by Philippa Gregory. I'm pretty sure I mentioned this in one of my previous check-ins, that this book is quite slow, and that continued through the end. Honestly, I think this book should have ended probably like at least 100 pages, if not more, before it actually ends. But I understand why the book kept going, because it's such a deep character study of this one man's life. They really took it from like his, I don't want to say his birth because he's already fully grown when the story starts, but they really take him through like the majority of his life, and not everything that happens throughout his life is like super exciting. So it was really hard to get through some of those parts. And honestly, at the end, I don't even really know what the book was trying to say at the end. And maybe it wasn't trying to say anything. Maybe it was just about this guy's life as a gardener. He was a gardener to kings. He had a kind of a love affair with a duke. He grew trees. He made money. He lost money. He was in favor, out of favor. He struggled with his wife. He struggled with his children. Like, there's a lot of good stuff in here. It's just you have to be prepared that it's a very slow burn, and it's really just about this one guy's life, and that's it. So if you like that type of thing, then you might want to give this 500-page book a try. If that's not your jam, though, if you're not into that, I can definitely recommend other Philippa Gregory books that are much more engaging and exciting. But I'm still glad that I read it because now I can check it off my list of books by Philippa Gregory that I've read, because she's written almost 30 and I've read over 20 of them, so I have very few left that I still need to read. One of the Philippa Gregory books that I still have to read is actually a sequel to Earthly Joys, and I don't understand how that book could even have a sequel based on the way that it ends. But I'm definitely not going to jump to read that sequel right away. I think I need a break because that story, it was a bit of a chore to get through. What was not a chore to get through, though, was Chain of Thorns by Cassandra Clare. And as I mentioned, I was buddy reading this with Kelly. She definitely finished the book way sooner than I did. But because I'm like a multiple book reader, it just means that I don't get through things as quickly. So I literally just finished this book today. Yes, that's right. I just finished it today, like right before the filming of this video. Again, I love Cassandra Clare. I love her worlds, and this is another book that I really enjoyed. I think she's put out so many books by now, like, you know if you like Cassandra Clare or if you don't. If you've never read her, I would say pick up one of the books in the Infernal Devices series. Like, I forget which one is the first one off the top of my head. Clockwork Prince or Princess. I would start there because I think her books get better as she goes, and I really enjoyed this series. There's a couple things that maybe I think I would have done differently, but very, very minor things. Overall, really enjoyed this book. I enjoyed the characters, new characters, old characters. I enjoyed the world building. I really enjoyed this book. It was a big, chunky book for the most part. I loved every minute of it. And honestly, I'm kind of sad that it's over because I would totally want to spend more time with these characters. So that's the only bad thing, is because these books usually come in chunks of 3, and then once you're done, you don't always get to revisit your favorite characters. I know she does, extra materials. So hopefully maybe she'll have another short story collection with some of the characters that were in here, because there's a couple that I would like to know what happens to them, after the events of the book. But can't wait to talk more about this one with Kelly and hopefully have a review up. Definitely not until after my vacation, so I don't know how long that's going to take, but it's on the list. It'll get there. It'll happen eventually. Another review that will happen eventually is Blue Lily, Lily Blue. Again, I don't think I have anything new to say about this book that I haven't said already. Really enjoyable. It was a great third book in this series, and just like the first 2, this one continues in the same vein. So great characters, great character arcs for all the characters, a really fun, fast-moving plot, great world building, and there's actually a couple new characters in here, which at first I was like, why are they introducing new characters at the 3rd book in? Why do that? But having read the whole thing and gotten to the end, I really like some of the new characters, even the ones that are like the villains, let's say. There's a new female villain that is introduced, and in the beginning and even halfway through the book, I'm like, I don't understand why she's there. But by the end, I actually really ended up liking her. I thought her character ended up being like really entertaining and a great villain. So I can't wait to see what happens in the next book, for sure. For sure. And finally, I don't know if anyone remembers, but in my very first review of the Raven Boys, one of my minor complaints was that there was so many mysteries and so many questions and not enough answers. This book finally actually starts to answer a lot of questions. Not all of them, but a lot of them. And I really appreciated that, and I really, really like it. So I'm going to have a really hard time deciding which I like better, Blue Lily, Lily Blue, or Chain of Thorns, because those are both really good books, and I feel like I like them equally. But yeah, long story short here, really enjoyed this one. I just love this series. Again, definitely has the potential to end up on a all-time favorite list, depending on how the final book in the series goes. So that means that there is one book that I didn't get around to finishing, which is The Gilded Ones by Namina Forna. Because this book was like kind of at the bottom of the stack as I was reading, I just didn't get to it every single day, which means I didn't finish it. And honestly, I only have like, I don't know, 2 chapters left, so I could have squeezed them out, but I don't want to pressure myself to have to like finish the book super quick just to get it in February. No, not doing that, especially not this year. That was one of my goals this year. Don't pressure myself to read. So I still have a few days before I go on vacation. I'll finish it before the end of the week, but this will end up on my my March list. So the only other thing I have to share is my progress on my beta read, which as of the filming of this video, I'm not 100% done yet. However, I do believe that I should be finished by tomorrow. So by the end of March 1st, I should be done. I honestly wish that I had more time because I personally would have liked to be able to go back and read it through again, because I feel like the first time you read through something, you're like really looking for like, I don't want to say nitpicky, but you're really looking at the details. And I feel like if I went back and read it again, I could take like a step back and then maybe look at like the bigger picture. So I'm trying to do both at once, but in a typical situation, I would like to do that separately. Unfortunately, February was a short month. You all hopefully know by now I've been super busy, just not even with the upcoming trip, but with work. It's a very busy time, and I just have not had the time. So that's one thing, unfortunately, I won't be able to do. But I am going to try to like put together some overall thoughts, feedback that might not be like specifically marked in like, a manuscript that will hopefully be helpful. Again, that is the goal here, to be as helpful as possible. So pointing out the things I really liked, pointing out things that maybe don't, pointing out areas that I think could use a tweak or a change, anything that needs to be removed potentially, just anything at all, because at the end of the day, I want to help the author make the best book that they can. That's always the goal. And they sent it out because they wanted feedback, so I gotta be able to deliver that to them. Since this is my last update for February, if you actually watched the entire video, I do have a pillow pet next to me who I'm sure will probably make a noise if I pick her up. You can see her little ears sticking up here, but I'm gonna do it anyway, so. And that is Lola, my big pillow pet. Hi, Lola. I know. Lola, you're such a big girl. Lola's a big kitty. Yes, she is. Lola's a big kitty. Can you say hi, Lola? Can you say hi? Thank you. Anyway, as always, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you're not already, please subscribe to my channel for more bookish stuff coming your way soon. Thanks for watching and happy reading.